Hello, this is Logan Hunter. For my research paper, I did injury prevention in college athletes. First, I want to talk about why it is important to try and prevent injuries in sports. As many of you guys know, injury comes with the territory in sports. You know, as simple as rolling your ankle or jamming a finger to, tearing your ACL or breaking a bone. Studies have shown that almost 90% of student athletes report some sort of injury, and of those 90%, 54% play with an injury. And, we would like to see those numbers come down. Some of the studies that I did for the paper were sensory motor training in soccer players, daily stretching in baseball players, and adequate vitamin D intake for that was actually done in many different sports all across the country. For the first study, it was sensory motor training in collegiate soccer players. This study was actually done at the University of Mississippi. This was a 4-week-long training of the vestibular, visual, oculomotor, and postural balance. There were 38 males and 37 females that were in this study. And just to further tell you guys what sensory motor training is, in case you didn't know, it is the training and fine-tuning of sensory motor control from the output of the CNS. What this does is it builds up reflexes that we bring into the visceral system, which we then in turn plan our movements. And so, like I said earlier, it's a 4-week-long training. The way they broke this down was they did every athlete did like 2 to 3 rounds of 5 different exercises a day. Each exercise that they did was about 2.5 minutes to 3.5 minutes long. And then, so they would do like the different exercises depending on what output they were trying to improve, such as the oculomotor, the visceral, the postural balance. And the results for this were, after the 4-week-long training was over, there was a 3.8% increase in overall balance, an increase in motor control, an increase in endurance in deep cervical flexors by 2.6 and 4.3 mmHg. There was also a decrease in near point convergence by 0.63 centimeters. And there was a 27% total reduction in injury after treatment, which is pretty impressive. Secondly, I did another study that I wrote about was effects of daily stretching and overhead throwing collegiate athletes, which is softball and baseball, but in this study was baseball. This study was done at Arkansas State University. If you guys are familiar with baseball, injury is very likely and common in the dominant throwing arm for baseball players or softball players, I guess. If you have an injury in this area, it's usually season ending because you need surgery and therapy. But for this, they looked at, conducting a pre and post stretching exercise or workout in the athletes in the glenohumeral joint. This was done at least 5 days a week over a 12-week span. And it was monitored by the head athletic trainers in this program at Arkansas State. So for the results, how they get the results, they used a universal goniometer, which kind of measures, the range of motion and whatnot. But for the dominant throwing arms, there was an increase in internal rotation and total range of motion in the glenohumeral joint, which goes hand in hand with injury rates and that they went down. For the non-dominant arm, so which the fielding hand, the left hand commonly, there was no increase or decrease, but there's not a high concern with the fielding arm because there's not a lot of strain on that arm. So for the last study that I did, it was vitamin D intake in Division I college athletes. This was actually the first study that has ever been done on vitamin D intake for college athletes. The study included 347 different athletic programs. It goes to show that many athletes have a deficiency in vitamins, specifically vitamin D, and especially in athletes that do all their training and competitions inside, like wrestling, basketball, gymnastics, I guess. And many of you guys know that vitamin D has many benefits, as shown to improve performance and keep the body structurally sound. Results for this study were only about 7% of the athletes were getting the recommended intake of vitamin D. No one really thought about, vitamins. They thought they were just getting it all from their diet. There was no or very little supplementation in the programs. And lastly, the athletes just didn't have a healthy diet, or they weren't getting a variety. The study goes to show that if programs supplemented vitamin D for 1 year, 80% of those athletes would be up to the recommended intake. And also, the study shows that the lowered levels of vitamin D intake in the athletes showed that there was an increase in muscle soreness, tears, and sprains in those athletes that were vitamin D deficient. That's all I got for my paper, and I think it'd be interesting to see a little bit more in depth for the vitamin D. I know this was the first study and it was kind of broad, but I think it'd be interesting to, see how many athletes actually improved and how their performance was changed as they became as their recommended intake of vitamin D improved and was up to the recommended intake. But other than that, it was good paper. I learned a lot. That's all. Thank you.